So there is what you do with respect to ABC based or activity based costing. You will identify certain activities. But before we go to what is activity based costing, first let us understand in traditional costing what you do. Okay, in traditional cost, whenever I say it's absorption costing, what is there? You have your cost sheet. In cost sheet it will start with direct material, then you come to prime cost. After prime cost, what you have factory overhead, then admin overhead, then you have S&D overhead. How these overhead are calculated? In traditional they are absorbed based on what? It can be based on machine hours or labor hours or some percentage of prime cost or percentage of works cost. That is how the policies are framed with respect to absorption costing. So there you calculate one overhead rate and the same overhead rate is applied everywhere. With this, what happens? If there is a standard production, you are producing, let's say, only pens or you are producing only mobiles. So in this situation, this is okay. This is an easy process. Calculating overhead rate is easy process. You calculate once per year. Then for the units produced, you multiply either per unit or you multiply per hour. Something you will get either in these two, per unit or per hour, and that gets absorbed. Correct? This is what you do in your traditional costing. In traditional costing, the products are standardized. It works. And production is automated. Means there is not much of intervention or much of manual labor involved. Labor involved is minimum. In, let's say, they will set up the machine, switch on a button, and then you will get the output. So in this case, your blanket overhead rate is good. It will work. But let's take this same analogy. Let's say you are manufacturing mobile. You are also manufacturing laptop. You are manufacturing calculator. You are manufacturing speaker. Take example of a company like Boat or Noise. So they manufacture watch, earphone, smart watches, activity counter. Okay, what my idea is, you are producing so many parts. So in such case, what happens? If you use one overhead rate across all products, whatever result you will get, it will not be proper. So that is why in such cases where there are so many products, so you calculate activities. So to manufacture one mobile, you don't need a manpower. Okay, but at the same time, you have to assemble something. Let's say you have to assemble a laptop or a computer. You need manual also. You also need a machine. It is a complex type of assembly situation. So in that case, I may be spending 1 minute for one mobile assembly, but I may be spending 1 hour for one laptop assembly. So per unit, if I am charging, even though the computer is taking 1 hour, it is getting charged per unit only. Mobile phone, it gets assembled in a machine within a minute, but it gets charged for 1 unit. So in this case, what happens? Overhead rate is, this concept is called as skewed. Means disproportionately it is charged across products. So in this case, what they do, you break it down to activities. You charge some rate to activity. So based on how much time that activity or how many times that activity is done, the overhead is calculated. So what is the problem with traditional system? Traditional system in complex environment deals with multiple product varieties, different complexity levels, varied support efforts. Support effort means different function like quality, like production, inspection, setting up, material handling. All these are support efforts. So when there are multiple products, it is different for each product. In such case, the traditional overhead fails. It will not give you accurate result. So that is why you get distorted product cost. Why this product cost is distorted? Because there are hidden inefficiencies or extra support efforts that are not visible. Take the example of phone versus computer. So in computer, you need extra support. That will not be visible when you are charging per unit overhead. And based on this, you make bad decisions, wrong decisions. Even though the phone overhead may be higher, you are charging it, even though the phone overhead rate is lower. Why? It is used for only 1 minute. So its overhead should be lower. But since I am charging per unit, the overall cost of the phone becomes higher. So cost becomes higher, I add a margin and I sell it. Because the sales price is higher, it doesn't get sold. Now you got the relation between the poor decision making. The computer cost. Computer cost, it has used 1 hour of resource, but it got charged only per unit overhead rate. So in actual, the overhead cost is higher, but in your books, it is charged only 1 unit, so it is lower. And when you sell it, you are saying selling an actual higher cost product for a lower sales price. It gets sold. You think you have made profit, but your profit is lower. So your decision making is poor because your data or your method of charging overhead is wrong in this case. So what happens with activity based costing? It breaks down each production into different activities. So let us take the same example, phone and computer. So there will be one, let's say, machine setup, that is an activity. After machine setup, then placing of all the component in the machine. So it will assemble on its own, but someone has to place all the component in right places. So that is an activity. Then actual assembly by the machine, that's an activity. Then packing is an activity. All these activity is common for both the products, computer and mobile phone. But the degree to which these activities are used for this product will be different. For example, assembly time for mobile is 1 minute, but placing of all the component in that machine, it may take longer time. So this activity will have some rate, and that rate is applied based on how much time the activity is used by the product. With this, you will get almost accurate cost of this product. So the cost data is not distorted. So this is what is the flow of ABC. See, in your study material they have given, but it looks bit complicated. To simplify activity based costing, what you have to do, first you have to identify activities. Like example is given, setup, quality check, material handling, these are all activities. So these are usually given in the questions only. Then each activity will have some cost. You have to take activity as a pool. Like setup, let's take an example. What is the setup cost? So this is not the setup cost for iPhone, or this is not the setup cost for the computer. This is the total setup cost. What is the total setup cost? So that is called activity cost pools. Next step is you have to determine the rate. So this is called driver rate. So how do you determine this? Now in the previous step, you have got the total setup cost. You divide that by total number of setups. So you get per setup cost. So that becomes your driver rate. It's called activity driver rate. What is the driver? That is a factor which increases or decreases your activity cost. So that is the driver. Then you calculate cost per activity. Then with that you can calculate cost per unit. So this is easy to understand with one example only. So before we go to that, we will see what is the special about ABC, why it can be used. See, ABC focuses on this idea. What? Activities consume resources and products consume activities. What are your resources? Your machine hour, labor hours, all these are your resources. Product is not directly consuming resources. The activities are consuming these resources and products are consuming these activities. So that is the basic philosophy of ABC. So what you are doing, you are not directly multiplying these resource rates. Instead, you are multiplying the activity rates in the ABC. So to take an example of what are the activities, you have machine setup, quality inspection, material handling, dispatching, packing, issuing of material. So all these are activities, and different products consumes this activity in different values. So product A machine setup time is 1 hour. Product B can be 3 hours. So in activity based costing, they will be charged accordingly. 1 hour of activity A for A and 3 hour of machine setup activity for product B. That's how it will be charged. How do you arrive at this activity rate? What is machine setup rate? The activity consumes labor and all this. So activity consumes your labor, machine hour, energy, time, all this is consumed by activities. So combining all of this, you come up with a rate for that activity. So per 1 hour of activity, this is the rate. And these activities are then consumed by products. So what is the difference between traditional costing and activity based costing? This can be one of the question. So in traditional costing, you spread the overhead uniformly. But in ABC, you spread the overhead across activity, and based on the usage of activity, the overhead is charged. In traditional costing, it is basically for a standardized simple production. So if there is a complexity of product, this is ignored in traditional costing. In ABC, this is not suitable for standardized production. This is suitable for complex multi-product scenario. Okay, and it accounts product specific efforts and resource usage. What is product specific effort? That means based on the activity consumed by those products. Traditional costing may distort product cost if it is a non-standard and a complex environment. But in a standard and simple environment, traditional costing is the best. Why? It is easy and simple to do it. ABC is not easy and simple to do it. You have to identify activity, then you have to calculate what is their rate, then you have to charge these activities to products. So this is complex. Even though you get accurate information, the process itself is complicated. So that is ABC. Any questions on ABC theory part before we go to a problem?